VikesNow, Dustin Baker, the Sunday, May 22nd edition. Our topic today listed below is 6 breakout candidates for the 2022 Vikings who are not named Irv Smith, because every year at this time we forecast the breakout for Irv Smith. A couple years it was stifled because they had a tight end who was sharing targets named Kyle Rudolph. Last year it was stymied because of a torn meniscus. So I'm not including Irv in this list because that's fashionable, and we've already talked about that, and everybody already talks about that. So these are 6 dudes, various positions, who I consider breakout candidates for the Vikings this September and beyond, and not all of these are going to be right. So I'll be lucky if 1 or 2 of them are right. But these are guys that I forecast can make an impact, an unforeseen impact, or kind of do a KJ Osborne-ism from last year when he just, in the summer, bada bing, became the WR3, and that was that. What I didn't do is put first, high round draft stock guys from April's draft on here, because if I have a show called VikesNow and I talk about breakout candidates and I'm like, Lewis Cine, Andrew Booth, it's going to be like, really? They're supposed to be good. So this isn't Captain Obvious stuff where I'm just going to list off all this rookie draft class. These are guys that it would be cool, strange, unforeseen, and a little mystical if they emerged in that Osborne 2021 role. So not doing Scene and Booth. That was not considered breakout to me. Bless your heart if you feel that way. So I have 6 of them. We're going to go in order. Here's the first one. Alphabetical order is a little juxtaposed because I took his second last name first. Amir Marsette, the wide receiver, second-year wide receiver. He, in alphabetical order, these aren't don't put him at the top. But the reason I put Amir on here is that injuries happen. Adam Thielen is going to be 32 years old. There's always a small chance that KJ Osborne wasn't the real deal and regresses, and boom, you have a I was going to say dynamic, but according to his skill set, his college scouting report, a couple of flashes last year, a budding dynamic player if he sees the attention, the targets, the touches inside Kevin O'Connell's offense in Amir Marsette. So this would probably take an injury. The Vikings had golden opportunities to draft a wide receiver in April's draft, and they didn't. Flat out didn't. They traded picks to Lions and Packers to give them receivers, but the working theory is that they were content with what they had. Keenan McCardle, infamously said before the draft, we don't necessarily need to draft a receiver early on. I like what I got, in a selfless speech that he gave allegedly to the team with Kwesi there in the room. But Amir Marsette allegedly prevented them from thinking they needed another wide receiver because they looked at the depth chart and said, we already got a bunch. And so one of them could reasonably be Amir Marsette, especially if an injury happens. He would get more targets than he would as the current WR4, and I foresee him as somebody that can make an impact. And then you can't forget about the punt return, so he'll probably be the punt returner too. So that kind of folds into the conversation. That's number 1, Amir Marsette. Number 2 is Kellen Monde. Folks spend a lot of time talking about him, thinking about him, because he is everything, at least as an idea, that Kirk Cousins isn't. Monde is young. Cousins is older. Monde is fast and mobile. Cousins is slow and not really mobile. Monde looks cool. It's debatable if Cousins looks cool. So Monde offers a bunch of hope. Now, he's certainly not going to have a 2-quarterback setup. They're going to interchange or anything. However, Kirk Cousins has never missed a football game due to injury. He missed one due to a virus last year at a terrible time. But at some point, it wouldn't be odd for Cousins to miss a game or two due to injury, because that's usually how football works, but he has escaped it with an Iron Man, like a Cal Ripken-like streak up until COVID. Not quite Cal Ripken, but you catch the drift. Phillip Rivers-like streak, where the guy just never got hurt. So I can tell you that this coaching staff, if Cousins did get COVID or did get hurt, I don't think that they're dumb enough to believe that Mannion is going to take him to the promised land. Mannion is like a lesser dynamic Brad Johnson. Monde may not be very good, but at least he can move and make plays with his legs. Mannion cannot. He flat out cannot. I don't know that I've seen a more immobile quarterback at this day and age than Sean Mannion. So while he might flirt with the idea of being a QB2 this summer, I think ultimately it will be Monde. And even if they did the Zimmer thing where they nominated Mannion regardless, soon in this hypothetical Cousins injury, they would see Mannion ain't it, and then Monde would step through that door and hopefully make some plays with his legs and get the feel under him and win a couple ball games. So I'm picking Monde as a breakout candidate, that he will look decent if Cousins goes down. This does not mean that Monde will win the starting job. He really can't because this Cousins is so expensive via his contract. Amir Smith Marsette, Kellen Monde. The next one is Chris Reed. I think it did a whole show about him and the possibility of him moving to center. Kevin O'Connell forecasted a right guard battle this summer. Then they went and drafted Ed Ingram. And if Ed Ingram was drafted as a guard, there really shouldn't be a battle because interior offensive linemen selected in the second round should start, damn it. And so I expect Ingram to start at right guard. But this is the Vikings we're talking about. Right guard shit never goes the way that it's planned. And I floated the idea of Reed moving to center, or at least backed it up or explained how it would work. I think Judd Zolgat on Score North heard the plan, came up with the idea. I'm not sure which it was. But yeah, there's two avenues by which Reed can make an impact and be a breakout candidate. That would be a right guard. Organically, he wins the battle. Or the new coaching staff comes to its senses and realizes that Bradbury cannot pass protect. Let's try Chris Reed out here because he's got a little bit of history of doing it at his former team with the Colts. And I think I've said this 6 or 7 times on the show. Chris Reed is good. Unless Pro Football Focus, liars, lying to you, Chris Reed is good at pass protection and run blocking. So he should start somewhere in the NFL. I can't understand for the life of me why it wouldn't be the Vikings after we've had so many woes with pass protection for at least 8 years. I'm trying to figure out how far back it goes in Leslie Frazier era here on the fly. But Chris Reed could be a breakout candidate, not because he has sizzle or he's a big playmaker, because he could finally anchor the center or the right guard spot if he gets the opportunity. Amir Smith Marsette, Kellen Monde, Chris Reed. Next one is Chandan Sullivan. And I use breakout here loosely. It doesn't mean he's going to a Pro Bowl. You're not going to put your poster on your kid's bedroom wall. But he is entering a spot in his career where he could just remain the same, which is decent. Or, with the right defensive coordinator, hopefully, at Donatel, he could be good in the slot. He should have a mini stranglehold on the slot position. I think that's what he was signed via free agency for, and that's what his history is, his credo. He can play slot cornerback. Now, if he does a good job, better than Mackenzie Alexander, who, by the numbers, with the season wrapped up, was horrendous, Chandan Sullivan could give you warm fuzzies and therefore be considered a mini breakout because besides me and you, people who watch shows like this or people who make shows like this, nobody knows who Chandan Sullivan is. Like your grandfather doesn't know who Chandan Sullivan is. So if he does a good job in the slot alongside Patrick Peterson, Cameron Dantzler, maybe Booth if he gets in early on, a serviceable job by Sullivan. I'm talking like 70-something PFF if he could pull that off. That would be breakout in my in my estimation. That would be worthy of the candidacy. We shall see if it happens. Again, not a Pro Bowler, but just enough. Winding down the list, this is number 5, Jalen Twyman. Now, if you go to ESPN.com, inconspicuously, you'll see he is the starter. Right there, not the nose tackle, but I think it's on the right side of the defensive line. So I believe they have it set up as Dalvin Tomlinson, Harrison Phillips, and Jalen Twyman. I'm pretty sure that's a typo. I don't think they know what they're talking about, but for the love of God, it's ESPN, and they shouldn't have fake news out on the internet on the Vikings depth chart where they imply that, this guy's going to start. However, same thing with almost all of these. If something happens to Armin Watts, somebody's got to play. If Twyman has a good summer, that could be him. Twyman was in his pre-draft scout profile. For a while, he was a higher round draft pick, and then he slid down to the 6th round, and then he got almost gunned down or almost killed, shot last year 4 times, making recovery from that, wound up with these Vikings and vying for a roster spot this summer. So because Dalvin Tomlinson's a nose tackle, Twyman's not going to do that. Harrison Phillips is too good to be ousted. I have Twyman's slated for that Armin Watts spot if something happens to Armin Watts. And then Twyman could effectuate his fate. All of these 50 Cent-like stories where he gets shot and resurrects from the dead. And then boom, he's starting games for the Minnesota Vikings. What is it? It'd probably be 14 months after he was gunned down in Washington, D.C. or whatever it was. So I can see a world where Twyman gets some playing time and he starts to remind people why he was a higher draft profile type of guy before last year's draft. Amir Marsette, Kellen Monde, Chris Reed, Chandan Sullivan, Jalen Twyman, and the last one I just talked about is Armin Watts. It seems like Mr. Watts is going to be a starter on these Vikings. That's a pretty cool story, and it's not talked about that much. He rose from, what round was he drafted in? 5th or 6th? A few drafts ago, and he started, and he played very well when Michael Pierce was hurt. So Watts is considered almost like an incumbent because he got so much playing time, unexpected playing time last year, that he has an opportunity to solidify himself as a starter in the NFL and maybe flirt with that type of Pro Bowl talk if he emerges that way. That's what this breakout shows to state, that Watts has the potential, based on what we saw last year, to continue to mature and develop. And if that ceiling is high enough, Watts could be damn good. And by my opinion, that would be a breakout, that Armin Watts is more than just some backup to Michael Pierce. He's a guy that's a damn good defensive lineman, and I would call that a breakout that's sort of unforeseen. Because, let's face it, the 600 blah, blah, blah subscribers that watch this show probably know who Armin Watts is, but if I saw a guy at the grocery store at a Vikings hat on and said, hey, what do you think about Armin Watts? He'd be like, what is that? Is that your light bulb? He would probably not know who that is. So he has the opportunity, because he'll probably start, to make a bigger name for himself and, in my estimation, a breakout candidate. That is the show for Sunday. We got a brand new week coming up. Just a disclosure, you probably don't care that much, but I will be on vacation in June for a week, taking a road trip to Seattle with my wife and 2 kids. Then I'll be back for 3 weeks, and then we're flying to Hawaii. I'm going there to hang out with Wes Johnson, who you might know from Twitter and from VikingsTerritory.com. My family's hanging out with his family for a week, so I'll be off 2 weeks this summer. That still is about 2 weeks away, so you'll get, 12, 13 more episodes of the show before a week off. I hope that you're having a wonderful weekend, and that's all I got. Skol, baby.